Hello, everyone. I'm Easy Mode Alex, and today on the stream, I've got a special guest, a indie game developer, and this is a part of my indie game showcase segment of the show. So, without further ado, let's cue the introduction in three, two, one. Did you take any kind of creative license for like quests or side quests that might not be mentioned directly in the Bible, but you thought would be a cool addition to the game?
Yeah, I did. I wanted to add a little humor, just kind of keep it flowing because not everything was that we know would happen. Um, like for instance, there's certain spots in there where I add a little humor, where he meets a girl like a side quest, and he's got to find her cows, right? And just something kind of funny. He's like, really, I'm looking for your cows, and he's a shepherd boy. I wanted to add something, kind of keep it a little more entertaining also. Um, try to keep the kids involved, and obviously you got to have side quests, right?
Right.
So yeah, there's just several things. I didn't go just straight what was written. I was said, let's add a little extra, not adding to what
Mm.
the Bible says, obviously, but just adding a little something. Say, you can get a medicine, right? Not the potions, but the medicine to help heal. So what you do is you go and you save the cows from this man who stole the cows, and you bring the cows back to the girl, and she gives you a prize, or a gift for helping her,
Sure.
stuff like that.
What is that behind you? Is that inspired by the game?
Actually, what is behind me, I handmade. I bought a loom. That's the priest ephod that's mentioned in Leviticus that the high priest wore. I bought the yarn from Israel. It was hand woven, and I bought a loom and I hand loomed the garments here. And so this is kind of replica of what the priest would have wore in the tabernacle time. So, and I actually do a teaching on that at our church because I pastor a church. And so I do a teaching on the tabernacle, just kind of explain what they did back then, the customs, and it's got the bells on the bottom. So, I just wanted to keep it, basic. Now these aren't real jewels. I can't afford a diamond that big.
Yeah.
So I use pendants and just kind of things around the house. These are picture frames actually. And
Ah.
right here, that has the 12 tribes of Israel written out in Hebrew, in the
Wow.
Paleo Hebrew script. So I hand wrote that out. And I just wanted something that I can wear as a visual representation of when I teach the culture and the times of that time. This is how they went through it. This is what they did. So that's just a replica of the high priest garments.
Very cool. Very cool. Creative.
Yeah, I never
Um.
loomed before. That was the first time for me. So
Oh, really?
yeah, it took about 3.5 weeks to do this purple, gold, blue, and red. Yeah, 3.5 weeks to hand loom that. So
So not only a game dev, but a craftsmanship as well.
I make stuff out of leather. Pretty much anything. I like to do things. I'm a musician. Um, I used to have long hair down to my shoulders. I'm Pierce. They told me I'm the tatted preacher. I said I'm not like any preacher you've ever seen before. I'm real.
Cool.
We're all people, right?
Right.
And I wanted to develop a game that wasn't real preachy, but at the same time it was fun, and kids can read the Bible in a fun way. So
Right. So I think that's what my question was
yeah.
going off of that. What challenges did you have with developing a game without making it too preachy?
And I was that way because I'm a gamer, right?
Mm.
I grew up, as a matter of fact, the 2D aspect of the game, I grew up playing games like Final Fantasy. I remember, I remember when I first got my first game was a Nintendo, the NES. I remember when they came out with Final Fantasy One, and I was blown away. Right, we went from the Atari to the Nintendo, and I was just blown away. And growing up, we never really had any games, and there are a lot of parents out there, and I can say this right now, they don't want their kids playing video games,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
And I was like, you know what? But these kids love games. They watch them play it on YouTube, and my son's one of them. He loves watching other kids play games on YouTube and stuff, and even on Twitch. And I guess, yeah, and I'm just sitting there like, why not create a game
Mm.
for these parents to help, but also it was challenging, because there's certain aspects where you meet a guy who's like, hey, within the free demo, I could send you the link so you can play the free demo, but there's a spot where this guy gives you a challenge, like, read the stones. Once you get 7 stones, come back to me and I'll help you, and then you end up fighting him, right? Because he's trying to keep you from completing your quest. On the stones are just scriptures. And so I wanted to make reading the Bible not real preachy, but fun for kids, because there are a lot of good stories in the Bible for them. I mean, it just, to me, it's like I enjoy reading it, but as a kid, I didn't. So I'm trying to think from a kid aspect. How can I let them read, but still have fun with it? It's a fun, immersive way for kids to read the stories, to learn the stories like David and Goliath, and also to learn, other aspects, because there's scriptures in there. And also I wanted encouraging messages. Like my motto is God uses imperfect people for a perfect solution. So I put that in the game because I believe that nobody's perfect. I don't care how big your preacher might be, he's still not perfect. We're all human. We all make mistakes. And the moment we realize that we're all on equal grounds, then we can learn that, what? We're all here for the same purpose. We're not here to make each other better than each other. We're not. Nobody's better than anybody. And I wanted them to see that in that game because, you know, I've seen kids just tore down with religion. And as a pastor, I'm not religious. I tell them, I will teach you what it says, but how you live, God's a God of free will. He lets you choose your own path. And I don't want to be preachy to you. And I tell them that. I said, you want to know what the Bible says? I'll tell you what it says. The rest of that's up to you, you know? And I believe pastors have become to a point where they rule with an iron fist, you know? And I'm like, that's not what it's supposed to be like, you know? We're supposed to love each other, help each other. The whole Bible is supposed to be about love, right? And so why don't we teach that? And so through this game, I wanted to be able to show them that love and also let them read and learn that, hey, it wasn't all about wrath and destruction, you know, which we've been taught. And so I guess I was cut from a different cloth, you know. One of those things, I grew up in the religious aspect. I learned all the religions, and it was just like, I learned, I was like, religions start wars, man. Religions destroy people internally. It's not about being religious. It's about just following the love and compassion that we're supposed to have for each other. And if we can do that, man, we can just conquer the world, you know, not in wars, right? And so I wanted to develop a game that for kids that, even adults like me, I still love 2D games.
Sure.
And so, you know, and a matter of fact, when I had to, because I am the game developer, but I'm also the game, you know, tester. So even when I go back, I still got some jokes in there that I laugh at, you know. I got a spot where, you know, the Holy Spirit pops up and guides him on his way, and they argue back and forth a little bit, pick at each other. I want it to be a real personal experience, you know, and I want them to understand that, you know, you can talk to God not with some ritual. You can talk to him as you and I are talking, you know. It's not about ruling with iron fist. It's not saying you're better than me, I'm better than you. It's about showing them that, look, we can all do this together, you know. And I also wanted it fun for other people. I have a friend actually who is agnostic. And I sent him the game. He said, you know what? He goes, I really love this game. He said he didn't feel like I was trying to cram something down his throat. And I said, I'm not. He said, it's fun. And so, and he's older than I am. And I've got a lot of friends from different areas, different aspects. And, you know, I do not believe that we're to hate each other just because we think different, you know? And so in this game, I wanted to bring all people together and be able to say, you know what? I can still show you the Bible and you not feel like I'm telling you you're going to hell, because that's just the stupidest thing in the world. You know, God doesn't send nobody to hell. You know, we choose our own paths. And so I just wanted people to know that, you know, there's more to it out there and it can be fun. You know, it doesn't have to be Sunday morning wear a suit and tie, right? I preach in a t-shirt and jeans. So I told them, I said, it's not about a suit and a tie. It's not about being all dignified. It's about being real. And the moment we can be real with each other and love everybody, no matter our difference of opinions, then we can understand each other a little better. And I feel we would have a lot better of a world. We work together better. And it's just, I'll read somebody's book. I had somebody send me a book one day, and he said, just read the book. I read the book, and it wasn't a Christian book. But I said, you know what? I really love the creativity in this. She said, you actually like it? I'm like, yeah. I said, we're all human, right?
Right.
And I said, that's the problem is there's so many pastors out there that have given people a bad taste, and Christians on Christianity. And I said, that's wrong. I said, we cannot be like that to people. I've had people come under our church, and at the end of the church, they say, well, I felt like you didn't call me a sinner. I said, that's because I am. I said, Romans 3:23 says we all sin, and we have. So why am I going to treat you any different because you sin differently than I do, right? So I wanted a game where people can just not feel like they're being crammed with the Bible, but they can just play it and have a good story and still get to that David and Goliath fight at the end, and I've tacked on a few more fights at the end. It's more than just, oh, he's going to fight David and Goliath. I want it to be something that they're like, wow, yeah, that wasn't in the Bible, but it's like it adds creativity to it. Like movies, Hollywood's always going to throw in their little scenes in there. It wasn't written, but they have to have it in there. They call them fillers, and I get it, and I struggled with that in the beginning. I ain't gonna lie with you. I was like, but I don't feel bad for adding little quests that definitely wasn't in there, like the girl you find in the girl's cows, or he's got to read these stones to get to a certain part, like when he meets Samuel. Samuel anoints him as king, and then he moves on to the next section. And so I just added the quest, and I said, you know what? It was fun. It was still fun, but they still get the gist of the story. And I put the scriptures in as they read, like when they click on the stones, they read the scriptures, and these scriptures will give them the actual story. So where you're playing the fun, immersive part, you're still reading the story itself. And so I'm trying to keep that part real. I'm definitely not changing the scriptures to fit my own personal opinions, because that's wrong. There's been too many people over years that have done that. So, but that's the gist of it. It was challenging for a minute, and I'm still building it. So there's still a lot to go, and a lot of things I can kind of tweak a little bit. But it's definitely been fun. This is my first game to develop. So,
Wow, impressive. Yeah, the game, you chose it to be David and Goliath. I imagine maybe for part of that because it's maybe more of a action-packed game
yeah.
story rather than some other ones. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So David and Goliath was actually one of my favorite stories as a kid, because it was a story of a young kid that everybody counted out. And I can relate to that story. David, his brothers, he was the one out working in the field. His brothers were the one fighting in the war against the Philistines, and he was the young guy. And matter of fact, when Samuel came to anoint king, what happened? Anoint the king. His father Jesse brought everybody, all the brothers except David. He was young,
Oh.
and so then what happened was Samuel's like, okay, but you have another son, the prophet Samuel, and he said, yeah. So he brought David, anointed as king. And so what had happened is David was taking the bread or food to the front lines to his brothers. His brothers were telling him, dude, David heard the Philistine giant Goliath making fun of God and the people, and David's like, who is this Philistine that's coming against God? And so he was this young kid, and they're like, go home, basically just stop, you're too young. How many of us have been told we were too young, we weren't good enough? And then David still shined, and he still took out the enemy that nobody else could take out. And to me, that's a story that relates to a lot of young kids also, and even young adults and even older adults, because I've been told my whole life, you're not good enough. When I first started to learn how to play the guitar, I was actually I was given a cheap guitar, and they said, my dad told me, he goes, yeah, you're not going to stick with it, so I got you a cheap one. So that made me want to stick with it. The next thing I'm trying to learn how to play the drums, he said, stick to the guitar, it's what you're good at. So then I learned how to play the drums, and then I became known in the area as the drummer. So these churches would have me come play drums for them. I had a couple of bands I played with, but I was like, I've been told my entire life, you're not good enough. You can't do this. You can't do that. The story of David and Goliath, to me, which is why I chose the story, was because that story helped me see that it doesn't matter how young you are, how small you think you are, you can still do great things. And I believe that will fit a lot of people, even people that don't believe. They may not believe, but this story could tell them, look, just because you're small, just because you don't think you're smart enough, you can still do great things. And I want to be able to send that message out above all things,
Wow.
because I believe that is a true message for everybody. You feel down, you feel alone, you feel like nobody likes you, uh, but you can still do great things. I mean, just think about how many great people in the world that started out weak and poor, and they sold their last dime to just for this. I mean, I look at stories like Bill Gates. I look at started with nothing, and now look at him, right? There's stories about great minds out there. I mean, like Albert Einstein was dyslexic. I mean, stuff like that. I mean, he's a genius. And I said, if you look at them, people told them they were stupid their entire lives, but they become the greats. So anybody, excuse me, anybody can be great as long as they have someone telling them and encouraging them. And I want to be one of them people encouraging them, saying, "Look, you can do great things also." And if that happens through a game, then that's awesome for me. You know.
You mentioned some of this a little bit. What kind of games did you play growing up, and what kind of games that inspire you to develop?
I love the role playing games.
Yeah.
I always loved the storylines. Final Fantasy games were always my favorite. And then I got into Skyrim, Elder Scrolls, and anything I can play that had a storyline. I love the adventure. I love the quests. I love being able to. I wasn't big on sports games because to me it's just running back and forth. I mean, I like them. I like the MLB games, the baseball games, because I'm a baseball fan. And so, but I really like the RPG, the role playing games, because I used to get lost because I used to be a police officer. So I would come home after, my day as working as a detective. I would come home and I just want to drown the noise out of the world. And so I would get into a game. And I know a lot of people that do that. They immerse themselves in this world. And now for me, that was a bad place to go. When my wife's sitting there, that did cause, but it was a place for me to go where I felt like I was part of that world. So role playing games for me kept me a little more, grounded. And so I've always loved role playing games. I love the stories. I love the challenges. I've actually currently started playing Red Dead Redemption 2, right? And I just love how much detail is in it. And one day I do want to get into 3D developing. If I can get to that part, work with Unity and all that. But I got to start somewhere, right? And so for me, it was role playing games. Yeah.
What engine are you using currently?
Currently, I'm actually using RPG Maker,
Ah, okay.
which is, I first saw that. I'm like, oh, this is cheesy. And I looked at it, I was like, no, it's actually turning out really well. And for me, I was excited about it because it was helpful. And I'm also learning coding a little bit because it teaches you a little bit. And I'm like, okay, so I'm learning coding. And I'm actually, right now, actually have been getting into Blender so I can start kind of doing some characters. I want to start developing my own characters. And when I do my second game, which I actually kind of have an idea of a sequel to this, basically, I want it to be like this story was a teacher telling this story, and the second game is going to be going to relate more to us now. It's going to be based on now times. And so I haven't figured out how I'm going to play that out, but I just really want to, get more into the 3D gaming, but I like the simple, I like the simple, just going through and doing the quest, but make it a little challenging where you got to level up and, I don't want it too easy, but I don't want it too hard, and so that's the balance I'm trying to work with. So I am using RPG Maker MZ. And so, I'm liking it. So.
Thank you to Brandon for coming on as a guest, and make sure to go check out Thy Kingdom Come. It is on Kickstarter, so you can back the project, and I'll have the link to the Kickstarter in the description. And if you are a game developer or a small streamer, I do a small streamer segment where I feature a small streamer and interview them and do a little bit more activities with small streamers than I do with the game devs, just to make it a little bit more interesting and to show off your personality as a streamer, but as well as always looking for new indie game developers to come on the show and talk about their games as well. All right, and that's it for now. Peace out.